Hello, good day, everyone. So today we are going to talk about water cycle, and just like we discussed the previous classes, we are going to talk about the water cycle based on those subheadings, including what the water cycle is, what is the major reservoir of water, how does the cycle take place, what are the processes that forms a fundamental basis behind the water cycle, and then we talk about the impacts, the human impact on water cycle, and how does that affect the environment, that is the environmental impacts of water cycle. So basically we know what water is, and we've known that the water covered up to about 71% of the Earth's surface, out of which the remaining is soil or land, where out of this water we have up to about 96.5 to be from ocean, and then only 0.9% comes from the other type of water, and then we have pressure water comprising only of 2.5%. And within the pressure water we have ice and the glacier, and then the groundwater and the surface water, which mostly we use for drinking and the rest. And that comprises of only about 1.29% of the 2.5% of the overall water. Now just imagine, and out of that we have all this, the ground ice, we have lakes, we have river and the rest. So one thing we know about water cycle is just a process or movement of water from one pump to another. So because here we talk about the pump, and we don't talk about, maybe it's not a chemical form, rather a physical form, because we know water exists in three different forms. It exists in liquid form, that's the water we know. It exists in solid form, ice, and it also exists in the gaseous form, which is the water vapor. So how does the water move through changes in the stage from one part of the ecosystem to another? So we say the movement of water through the hydrosphere, atmosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, which this movement involves the conversion from one form to another. What is the major reservoir of water? The major reservoir of water here based on this is ocean. So ocean is the major reservoir of water. Even though we've seen groundwater, we've seen the clouds, but that constitutes just a small portion of it. And, by the way, some papers shows that the main aim of this water cycle is nothing but to ensure that the water is purified, or a means of purifying the water. So do we need to talk about before we go to the steps involved, do we need to talk about the functions? Rather, we can talk about the function of water or biological function. Rather, we can talk about why this water cycle. So one of the important things we know about water cycle is that it is very important in regulating temperature of the globe. rather temperature of the Earth. It's help in cooling down the temperature of the Earth. It's also a help in distributing fresh water around the globe. So just like we mentioned purification step, because the water contaminated, polluted, and even the ocean is not a fresh water. So there is a need for fresh water, and it is the fresh water that is used drinking and a lot of activities. So water cycles help in purifying this water, in obtaining this fresh water that can be used for so many reasons. And one of the reasons also we use the water to plant growth, because it's a way of distributing this water all over the land so that the land can be cultivated for agricultural purpose, food production, and food security. And then we also help, water helps in maintaining the weather, and it also helps in shaping our land, the landscape, through erosion and maybe sediment transportation, because when it rains, the water usually used to wash away land, used to wash away some areas, maybe undulating areas were made undulating or something like that, formation of the belly, and then maybe pushing of some heaps of land or sediments to fill a particular belly so that you would have undulating land or something like that. So some of the main functions of water cycle as cited. So how does this water undergo these processes? So we have the water from its own reservoir, which we cite the main reservoir is the ocean. Then this water move to different parts of the ecosystem. So basically, we classified the movement into two. We have the vertical movement and we have the horizontal movement. So the vertical movement in this case is from the reservoir, from the main reservoir, we have evaporation, because a lot of water got evaporated, then move into the atmosphere in an attempt to, and this evaporation is like a purification actually step, because the majority or the high amount of this evaporation takes place on the oceans or in the oceans, and these oceans contain a lot of dissolved salts. So when evaporation takes place, the water does not carry these salts into the vapor form. Rather, it's only the water particles that move out, and we already know how this process takes place, and even the coming of water molecules to form a liquid, and how does what the temperature helps in separating the water molecules, thereby leading to evaporation of the water to form a water vapor, and this water vapor can be taken off into the sky. So this evaporation takes place on the land, on the ocean, on so many environmental surroundings, and we also have transpiration taking place by the plants. And we also have evapotranspiration, the combination of the two. We've also seen respiration in humans. We have sweating, breathing, where water vapor is being released and then can be taken up into the atmosphere through this vertical movement. When they reach a certain latitude, just like the geographers used to say that the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. But before it reaches that stage where we mention, because it doesn't actually go that far, so all these things happen within the troposphere. So when it goes off, and as it goes off, it's tend to be cooler because of the decrease in the entropy of the system. Because remember, I told you that it is that energy that is enough to separate the water molecules and then make the water to evaporate, to change from the liquid stage. So because the entropy is becoming lower, so it will bring this water vapor together. It to bring them together, closer, because the entropy is distance, and it is getting a bit more heavier, trying to condense. So it condensed to form this cloud. So this cloud is now looking for just a reason to completely come back to the liquid form. So it will keep on moving until when a reason come, maybe they come across a much more cooler area of which the water will have to condense, will have to precipitate and comes down to form what we call rain. So movement of this water is what we basically call vapor flow. So we've seen evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. The water will precipitate to form rain, snow, sleet, hail, etc. And once it comes down, this water is taken up by plants, is taken up by soil. Some of them will come, run off, will move to the oceans, the rivers, streams, lakes. Eventually, everything will empty in the oceans, because the river, the stream, is they hold water for some time before they eventually move into the ocean. And even the underground, because some part of the water will percolate, will infiltrate into the soil, deep into the groundwater aquifers, where they also have a route that finally move. Some of them move to the empty in the oceans, and then we have everything back to the oceans. So basically, this is what the water cycle is all about. So we have about 80% of this water being evaporated, only 20% is being used for agricultural processes, used in human consumptions, used in eating, drinking, and the rest. Then finally, this one's water, because the human being will have to die. After dying, you rot, after decomposing, so water content would move out of the body, etc., like this. Some would pump part of the groundwater, and some would finally empty itself into the environment. So this is just because it's so simple that you can see the movement of the water. And once it comes down, it's flow on the ground as a runoff, stream flow, or river flow, and then everything will empty in the ocean. And even when it goes as underground water, we can also finally see how the underground water gets into itself down to the ocean. And then in the ocean also, this is where bulk of the evaporation takes place, and then it goes back. And some of this also taken by the plants, it also goes back through transpiration, and then the process continue like this. So this is just a more clear identification of how this is. So the overall driving force here is the energy that comes from the sun. Just like I said, the energy from the sun now destabilizes the entropy, making the entropy very high, that will separate the water molecules, or that will make the water molecules to go apart, far away from each other, and that will lead to change in state from the liquid to vapor in the oceans, and then from there it's moved to the sky. So what are the impacts or human impacts on this water cycle? Human activities actually significantly impacts on, leading to a various number of consequences. But some of the impact, like deforestation, human beings tend to cut down trees in the forest, and that is a way of reducing transpiration process. And we talked about pollution also, a lot of pollutions when you put so many things inside the water, chemicals that will reduce the level of evaporations, and when also generating hydroelectricity, when water is used in generation of electricity, it causes disturbance with regard to the movement of water back, because water is taken and then put in a particular area that prevents a loss of water. So that will also reduce the level of water. And we talked about land use also, like urbanization, even the agricultural activity, the infrastructural development which alter the runoff or infiltration or evaporation, so that a lot of water is not being is being caged from passing through the normal route, and that leads to a lot of damages like erosions and contamination, pollution. And once there is a pollution, we have degradation in water quality, and that also, because of the chemicals which finally empty into the river, it can cause a lot of loss to the biodiversity, and even put the security, because the water contain a lot of contaminants, may not be good for agricultural purposes, and that also poses a lot of risks to human health and economic consequences. One important thing I think that is linked to this cause is how this water actually or this process leads to facilitate the increase in evaporation. More especially, generating hydroelectricity causes a lot of water vapor. Even the irrigation causes a lot of evaporation, etc. Even though deforestation, in the other case, it causes a decrease in that. But one thing we remember is that this water vapor is one of the greenhouse gases. So increase in water vapor can also lead to this issue. Have the water vapor forming part of the greenhouse gas, and that will also increase the atmospheric temperature, that exacerbates evaporation, because the temperature increase, the evaporation activity increase, and once the evaporation activities increase, we'll have the water shortage, and once there is a water shortage, we have problem of agricultural productions, we have a lot of problems, water usage, availability of water, droughts, etc., etc., and salinity, and at the end you will see people going back to the use of ocean for agricultural purposes, which the plants may not be able to withstand. So one of the mitigation strategies relevant to these are all the mitigation strategies that lead to global warming, like to withstand the issue of stress, droughts, salinity in water during agricultural processes, are all listed as an attempt to ensure that this issue has not affected human activities. So these are the basically a few things I think we need to talk about with regard to how water is being recycled in our society, in our environment, and how the impact of it can be minimized. How does it impact, or how does human activities and the use of water lead to decrease in the efficiency in this process, and decrease in efficiency of this process, more especially when we talk about generation of electricity, irrigation, how these things disturb and increase evaporation, and how does this increase in evaporation causes an increase in water vapor, and how water vapor in return being counted as one of the greenhouse gas, leading to what we call the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect is the consequence of what we've seen as global warming. So here I have some tutorial questions to remind us of how some questions need to have been formulated for this course. This is just to guide you the more, because I think we actually used to have a recorded failure. I just want to believe that maybe we don't used to have much of the past questions, but yeah, I have a question presented to you, including the first part. So if you have, please, you take your time, sit down, and go through these questions. If you have any trouble attempting the questions, I think whenever we have a time, we can discuss, and you will see where you may actually getting it wrong or something like that. So we have this. One of the questions I think I need to read. describe how cyclic evaporation precipitation induced by human affects climate change. No, I think this is just what I explained. So you can have the answer from this class. Outline 2 ways by which human affect natural flow of sulfur between biotic and abiotic component of ecosystem and the consequences. So that will, the lecture on sulfur cycle will answer that. So if eventually I was able to produce and upload something, you can still go through it and you will have an answer. But if not, then the day I come for the class, I think I will start with the sulfur cycle, treat the sulfur cycle, and then while discussing, I know for some of you just put that at the back of your mind, you will have the questions answered. What are the principles of bioremediation? When you go back to what you've discussed with Prof, I know you can get those answers. The factors affecting the success of bioremediation, what factors affect the success of bioremediation process, you can also, how does biospurging work and what is its purpose in bioremediation. That I have a question on principle of waste management and explain how the method of waste production, waste reduction and prevention. Also, I think these questions are more of the first part, but just expect a balance between the two parts. Yeah, precisely. Oh, this one contains a big one. I think it has to do with phosphorus cycle, where we give a phosphorus cycle, we emitted some aspect process of the cycles, and then ask you to fill in the spaces. So you can just think of anything like this can happen. You may decide to give a particular pathway, one of the pathway through which one of those elements is being recycled in the environment, and asks you to fill some of these spaces, and believe me, it will be very confusing. So when you see the questions, you can even, because I think this question in particular, a lot of people told it because, but if you're actually following and you really sat for the course and you understood what was explained, you just see one or two words and that will remind you. But otherwise, many got confused as to what is actually being asked. So please take, like I said, take your time, make use of this. I know you guys are very highly occupied, so but this will also give you a lot of chances to watch this at your convenient time. So I'm still expecting to meet you guys on Monday so that we can see how we can go through the support cycle, if possible, or if I was able to just do the something support cycle, then we'll go through the questions and answers, attempts in terms of few highlights, and if there's anything we treat, and then we fix test so that we can just do away with the chaos. All right, see you.